So what's the scam? Bernanke said that the Federal Reserve or the United States was not willing to help the European Union, and basically they're going to do whatever they got to do on their own. So the markets didn't like that, and they went down. But quite obviously, before Bernanke says something, there's people that know it and know what he's going to say. I'm sure of that. It's common sense. And you figure the other central banks know what he's going to say. Now, you're looking at the prices of the metals going down. I didn't expect this to go down as much. I figured about a month ago, I figured silver probably float back up to $40 an ounce, even by the end of the year or more. Um, I didn't expect this. But one thing I keep looking back to, and this is from November 18th, but it's true right now. Central bank gold purchases for the third quarter more than doubled from the second quarter. We're almost 7 times higher than a year earlier as countries continue to diversify reserves. So this has been going on. Central banks have been basically net buyers of gold, and they do play the game in and out. So you have to assume if they're net buyers of gold, do they want gold to go down? No. It's just like an individual. That's your capital. You want the worth to go up. And what I think they're doing right now is they're trying to get people to sell off, and they're buying it. That's what I think is going on. And I heard these stories from Bob. I kind of do like Bob Chapman because he's a pretty good scammer, but I got to watch because I realize he doesn't really have the so-called inside, in my opinion anyway. He doesn't have the so-called inside information like he says. But it's the same thing like he was saying, that they're looking to buy. They're looking to get it cheap, and that's what they're doing right now. Central banks and other institutions, by comparison, had bought 66.5 tons of gold in the second quarter and 22.6 tons in the third quarter of 2010. So 3 times more. So it's like they're buying this stuff up like crazy, so they want to get it cheap. That's really what's going on. That's really what's going on. Obviously, I wish I knew what Bernanke was going to say. But you don't know. You don't know. If he said, that's why sometimes I look at the technicals. They do work up to a point. But if you knew what Bernanke was going to say, if you would have said, oh yeah, we're going to help the European Union get through these tough spots, gold would have went right the hell up. So that's really what's going on with a lot of things. One word out of that guy's mouth and the market's changed in 2 seconds flat. So the next EU summit is going to be around the end of January. And now there's 26 of the nations that signed on with the treaty. Britain was the only country to vote against the measure. That would tighten budgetary discipline and move towards economic union. And I kind of have a feeling that Britain didn't sign on to anything new, other changes, because the City of London is a scam in itself. They got a lot of their financial power in itself, and I don't think they want to be part of this. They don't want. I think there's a power game going on here. The City of London does not want to get involved too much with this EU or be restricted by it. So that's what's going on, I'm assuming. But things can change very rapidly. Now, I went back in oil, and I saw that oil's actually lower than when I went into it. I went into about 95, 75 around there. I figured it was going to probably bounce off of 95. It could drop to 90, but it's a guess, I'm just thinking with tensions in the east and possibly closing the Straits of Hormuz that it's probably not going to go all the way down to 90. I'd expect maybe the metals. I don't know. To me, this doesn't make any sense at all, because you're looking at the physical buying. I'm looking at out of stock, out of stock, out of stock, left and right. So, but personally, I don't care. I'd rather get it, just as everybody would want to do. They want to get it at the cheapest, lowest price possible. But this was back from Zero Hedge on 12/8, and talks about one thing for conspiracy websites to indicate that the Federal Reserve or the global central bank cartel are doing everything in their power to manipulate the price of gold lower to something different when the reputable Deutsche Börse-owned Market News does just that. So the markets said, reports said that the Bank of International Settlements, the Bank of England, and the Federal Reserve was selling gold after it popped to a session high. So they're playing in and out of the markets left and right. So much for all the sworn testimony claims that the central bankers do not manipulate the price of gold. So one thing I'd have to figure, though, they are net buyers. And do they want the price of gold to be low long term? Definitely not. And considering there's such a crisis coming up with far as sovereign debt and everything like that, and it's a contrived crisis, quite obviously, totally contrived crisis, because all fiat money pretty much comes into existence in the form of a loan. So what are they doing? What are they doing? They're trying to grab as much precious metals physical as they possibly can. And they're not just into gold and silver. I don't think they're into silver, but they'll be buying a lot of different types of assets in their portfolios, I assume besides gold. And so I think this is a scam, very much manipulated scam. But I don't think it's going to last much longer. That's the thing. I could be wrong. I didn't expect it to go down this low. I figured if it dropped below 30, it was going to be a very brief time. So, but usually when people start talking about 25, 22, and all this kind of stuff, that's usually when it rebounds. And, the situation, like I said, in the euro is not really the same as what you see in the dollar, because the price of silver and gold, I know they're dropping, but the euro and the euro currency, it went from like 142 just 6 weeks ago. That was at the end of October. Here we're in mid-December. It's at 130. So you had a drop of a good almost 10% in the currency itself. So in effect, that makes the commodities about 10% higher in their currencies. So I don't think. I think there's still a lot of buying going on due to uncertainty, and what I think this is contrived, very much contrived, because I don't think the central banks throughout the world, they know exactly what Bernanke's going to say beforehand. So they would have been dumping on the market right before he would have said this, selling at a little higher, and they're probably buying it back. There's another person on the opposite side taking this trade. Somebody's selling, somebody's buying. There's the volume there. So a lot of people are letting go of their holdings at this price, and somebody's the buyer. So you got to figure who it is, right? But that tells you just a little common sense, to repeat myself. If central banks are net buyers of gold, especially in this last year, do you think they want this to happen? No, they're trying to accumulate more. So there is something true about what Bob Chapman says. He says that the price of gold is being dropped so the big guys can get it or whatever like that. And like Lindsey Williams says the same thing. But as far as them saying it was just for September, no. I mean, their game is throwing curveballs at people, and they're pretty good at it. So they throw me some curveballs, but I don't think it's smart to just keep always holding on. Like I said, and I think this price gets over around $60. That might be a good time to dump some of it and wait for a pullback. That's what I'll be doing.